Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky preparing for the start of a high-level meeting between Ukraine's officials and the Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Saudi Arabia. They plan to talk about possible ends to the war between Ukraine and Russia. Zelensky is in Saudi Arabia for discussions with the Crown Prince today. His team will include his defense and foreign ministers, expected to begin talks tomorrow with the U.S. delegation led by Rubio. On board Air Force One Sunday, President Trump expressed optimism the talks could produce significant results.
We're looking at a lot of things. We have big meetings coming up, as you know, in Saudi Arabia. That's going to include Russia. It'll be Ukraine. We'll see if we can get something done. I'd like to get something done. A lot of people died this week, as you know, in Ukraine. Not only Ukrainians, but Russians. So I think everybody wants to see it get done. We're going to make a lot of progress, I believe, this week.
Joining us now, Andrij Dobriansky, Communications and Media Director for the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America. Andrij, the president also said that Ukraine hasn't done enough to show it wants peace. What do you make of that statement and the next steps?
Well, I think it's interesting that we haven't heard a single thing proposed for Russia to do to show that it wants peace, including being less vague about what they're planning to do in Saudi Arabia. There are conflicting statements out of the Kremlin about who's going to attend the talks in Saudi Arabia. We know that that relationship between those two countries has been a little frayed, at times working together to help manipulate the oil markets against the United States, at times being told that they are making statements that by President Trump, either in this administration or the previous one, that they say that they've never made. I think it's going to be interesting to see what developments come out of this meeting, not just for Ukraine, but it's well known that Russia would like to seek some kind of changes as far as their footprint in Syria, what the Saudis can do to support their claim. The Russians are seeking to have some kind of changes announced at the UN Security Council, again, with the United States' help. This is a big change in terms of how the United States acts in the world, now actively working with Russia at the Security Council for the first time.
There have been some concerns raised or expressed from even Republican senators about the U.S. military pause in aid to Ukraine and also intelligence sharing. The president addressed this on Air Force One, saying that we're just about to the end of the pause for the intel sharing. Your reaction to that and the impact of it at this juncture?
I don't believe anything that the president says at this point, because it changes from day to day, and the international partners also do not believe in anything he says until we have actual information from the ground. So what you mentioned has been happening are several devastating decisions by the United States. First and foremost, from a humanitarian side, the United States has shut down USAID, but even before that shutdown, they have stopped international aid going to many international aid organizations throughout the world. The United States supports over 80% of food distribution around the world. And for Ukraine, that cut in U.S. aid has been devastating, and I would say it has led to a loss of life. Secondly, right after the inauguration, the United States stopped allowing the Ukrainian forces to use U.S. targeting on locations within Russia. That's not anything that was announced beforehand. We only found out about it weeks later. And then lastly was the fact that the United States most recently, following on the meeting in the White House, what the United States has shut off is the ability for Ukraine to achieve long-range detection. This is not to say that the United States still isn't doing detection over the skies of Russia and Ukraine to know what's happening. It is simply preventing the people of Ukraine from using Western anti-aircraft munitions to shoot down glide bombs, drones, rocket attacks that are being sent towards Ukrainian civilian positions. Again, this has nothing to do with the war on the front line, where Ukraine has actually pushed back the Russians in the last week. We're talking about the ability for Ukraine to shoot down missiles that are attacking Kyiv in portions of western Ukraine, which it has done in the last week for the first time since the beginning of the war.
I want to go back to your first point, Andrij, when it comes to aid, and you said there have been some devastating examples with a lack of aid. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. First and foremost, USAID, for the most part throughout the world, and especially in Ukraine, a lot of the international distribution efforts have been done through UN agencies. So many people, when they visit Ukraine, and I've done delegations with Republicans to Ukraine, many people will see aid being distributed to hospitals in terms of generators, in terms of actual medications to hospitals. Those will come in UN boxes, not with the United States flag on it, even though they were almost completely funded by USAID. Now, the UN resources to send out supplies are struggling to find additional donors. And that's specifically what I'm worried about. I'm worried about the hospitals that are, A, being targeted still by overnight drones and rocket attacks, and B, making sure that the electricity to them, which is what is being targeted specifically. It's not just regular electrical plants. We even saw Chernobyl being targeted by a drone 2 weeks ago. So long as those plants keep being targeted, there's a priority on additional generators, additional heaters being deployed to these hospitals, and that's something that has not happened through USAID funds for the last number of weeks.
Well, thank you for the perspective and the update, as always, Andrij Dobriansky.